the Saudis, as you rightfully point out, are actually upset with the United States. They have a relationship. It's not going away anywhere anytime soon, but they are upset with the Biden administration and Democratic administrations in general because of two things. One, both the Obama administration and the Biden administration has been tough on Saudi with regards to human rights, with regards to democracy, with regards to the whole values that Western values that the United States tries to if you will, promote overseas. And Saudi Arabia runs into problems on that end. Then you have the war in Yemen. And then on top of that, you have the US imperative to do some form of an engagement with Iran, as we saw in the nuclear deal. And since 2015, and actually I would go back to 2013, Saudi-US relationships have been bad. So what are the Saudis trying to do? They're saying, okay, you know what? We're going to work. We're not going to, shut down relationship with Russia because of the war in Ukraine. And we're going to, deal with China. And it's an attempt to regain sort of the attention of the United States, because at the end of the day, it's not Chinese troops that are present in the Arab Gulf and protecting that region. It's US forces. And the Saudis are under no illusion that the Chinese can replace the Americans. So I think that's what's in their interest. But I really think that in this case, Iran has a lot more to gain than the Saudis. For the Saudis, this is posturing, if you will.
Yes. So please elaborate. How is Iran going to gain more out of this recent sort of thaw? Just specify for our viewers.
So look, Iran is isolated right now. Iran faces a lot of domestic problems with the unrest in the country, with an economy that is tanking. Their, inflation is at 50%. Their currency, since the beginning of 2023, has lost 30% of its value. They're in a real bind. So they need to break out of that isolation. Part of that has to do with providing drones and other forms of hardware and software assistance to Russia in the war in Ukraine. And then using China to sort of cool down things temporarily. So they're not interested in peace or a détente or anything of that sort. They just want to pause for now because they have way too many problems. And if the Chinese can do that, then that's great. The Iranians are also taking advantage of the fact that not only do they have close relations with the Chinese export most of their oil from Saudi Arabia.
That's the thing, yeah.
And so the Chinese have leverage, and they came in and they basically tied the knot per se. Although the knot, I would argue, isn't that durable. But I would also argue that these parlays between the Saudis and the Iranians have been taking place through Iraq, which is also an ally of Iran. And so this is more an Iranian initiative to which the Saudis have seen some benefit.
Right. Yes. I think that sort of imbalance is pretty clear, and thank you for articulating it so well. But Kamran, I think one needs to also, look at the Chinese agreement with Iran. I don't know for what for 25 years or some long period of time.
400 billion for over 25 years. It was concluded just before the Taliban took over, a few months before the Taliban took over Afghanistan. And that's a good point you make. And I take that to the next level.
Yes. Footprint.
They want to extend the BRI through Iran, connected to the Persian Gulf, from Central Asia into the Persian Gulf, just as they did the CPEC through Pakistan. But look, 25 years is a long time. $400 billion is a huge sum of money. The Chinese have economic problems at home. So this is more like an MOU. But I would say that if you look at how the Chinese operate, BRI was built around the time when the United States was making sure that everything in Afghanistan stays within Afghanistan because of the military presence there. That's why the Chinese built everything around Afghanistan. So I would, and now that the US is no longer there, Afghanistan is in huge uncertainty. The Chinese problems have been upset, including those plans I'm sorry, the Chinese plans have faced an upset, including those in Pakistan. So, you see the Chinese using the American sort of heavy lifting to kind of come in and appear more larger than life. I go back to what I said earlier. It's American forces that are underwriting, doing the heavy lifting for security in the Persian Gulf, in the Arabian Peninsula region. The Chinese are not doing that. If the Chinese had to do it, would they? They've never deployed any forces anywhere. So I think we need to keep the Chinese ingress into various regions that have been traditionally American spheres of influence with some, which we need to approach this with a deal or a healthy dose of skepticism.
No, certainly. I think premature jubilation or prospects of peace would be unwarranted. But having said that, just a few days ago, President Xi extended his term. He was re-elected by his party, whatever. Yeah, elected. I mean, of course, technically speaking, that's what they say. And within hours of that big new ticket item, within domestic political sort of arena in China, comes this announcement, hey, we have arrived in the Middle East, and that is the area, the region with oil, with the resources. And so Chinese are also now, I must say, asserting their power more and more, brazenly, if I may use that word, as opposed to the past. I mean, in the past, it has been always very subtle, very, BRI. They were very clear to always clarify this was nothing to do with the military power. It was only economic and investment and Chinese exports. But this particular moment, for whichever way it goes, it does challenge the U.S. Status globally, and in particular in the Middle East. I mean, I think that is something which is of significance here. Kamran.
Absolutely. I mean, look, that is significant. But my point over here is, let's look at what the Chinese are actually trying to do. Recently, just very recently, I would say the recent statements after the balloon incident, where you see the language of the Chinese becoming more tough, that, and speaking about American criticism of Chinese relationship with Russia. Then you have this development in the Middle East. To me, it seems like there's a noticeable shift, at least in the rhetoric of the Chinese and the posturing of the Chinese, to where they're now behaving far more assertively. They're not. They're no longer that, if you will, timid, docile, that, hey, this is all about economics. They are doing that. To me, that's not a sign of confidence. I think it is a response to vulnerability. Because when they were confident, when their growth rates were, in double digits, when they were pushing BRI, the heyday of the rise of China, you didn't see this kind of behavior. You would expect that kind of behavior because you're confident, everything is looking good, and you're on the march. But at a time when Chinese internal politics and economics are not doing well, all of a sudden you see this.